This is the Men of High Value channel. My name is Joseph Darling. Today we're talking about chapter 11 of Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, and specifically the part where he says why it is so seldom that men before the age of 40 becomes outstandingly successful. The first thing I want to mention when it comes to this is the context of the book. Napoleon Hill spent 20 years writing that book and doing research for it, and it was published in 1937. Even though the book was published in the late 1930s, the people Napoleon Hill was studying was people that had lived in the 1800s. Those were the people that were massively successful during this time. These guys weren't taught to set up their financial foundation first before they got married. They were told that they needed to get a good job, but most importantly, they needed to find a good wife so that they could establish a family and have kids. People married in their early 20s, and birth control was not really a massive mainstream thing as it is today. So what ended up happening is that people ended up getting married, and then they ended up having kids, and then those kids were basically in the way for the next 10 to 15 years until the woman no longer needed the man's other few hours that he had outside of his full-time job. Another aspect of this is that for people during that time frame, the late 1800s and early 1900s, those guys didn't automatically think, I want to build a big business one day. Everyone started a job. And then eventually, maybe they began to see the perspective of maybe I could own a business one day. So if we understand the context that the book was written during that time frame, we can understand that it's not really a huge excuse that we can use in today's world. It is not normal for men to marry in their early 20s these days. It is not normal for men to immediately start having kids at an early age, like I've done. However, what is becoming normal is that men are putting their careers first. And they want to establish themselves, and they want to establish big businesses as soon as possible and during their time when they're young. The only thing stopping them is, again, the woman. In the late 1800s and in the early 1900s, guess what? The woman was what stopped them. And today, what is it that stops men from developing massive businesses in their early 20s? Again, women sleeping around. Being distracted and tempted by women is the biggest reason why men are not achieving massive success in their early 20s today. And more are getting that immediate reward and temptation and distraction through porn and masturbation at home. A huge thing that makes it so that succeeding when you're 40 and 50 and 60 is not an excuse anymore, and why you should do it in your 20s is that back then, in the late 1800s and early 1900s, they did not have the internet, they did not have social media, and they did not have the writings of Napoleon Hill and other amazing thought leaders the way we do today. There really isn't an excuse for you to not build a successful business within a 2 to 5 to 10 year time frame. Not at all. Especially not if you practice seed retention. Now, this is really the main aspect and the secret that Napoleon Hill mentions in chapter 11, but that he doesn't say specifically anything about. During Napoleon Hill's time, semen retention was also a secret, just as it is today, but more and more people are beginning to learn about it. It's becoming a trend. I also want to use this video to answer one of the comments that I received the other day. Someone who said that maybe semen retention is not for everyone because there's tons of people out there who succeed without it. Now, that is true. Why should you practice seed retention? Most of the guys who begin practicing seed retention don't do it from the aspect of, I want to make a lot of money. They come from the point of desperation, trying to figure out their problems, trying to get rid of porn, trying to get rid of masturbation because it's held them back for so many years. They're on the extreme spectrum. I never really had huge porn addiction throughout my life, so that's not really why I started seed retention. I merely kind of randomly discovered it being married to my wife. Her not being that interested in me, just simply choosing, you know what? I'm just not going to do it. And I felt really good about it. And then I got fired up about it even more as I began to study it and see the intense benefits that could be mine if I applied this to my life. So how is it that other people are successful without seed retention? To put it bluntly, it is not difficult to become rich anymore, especially if you're attractive, because you gain confidence from women. That's where most guys who are successful get their confidence from, that they're actually able to sleep around. And then suddenly they get the respect of other guys because, man, that guy can get hot girls. I want to know what he's doing. And they look at his confidence and they're like, man, how do you do all of that? And that guy has sex energy. And he exercises and he looks good and he's basically out there selling and has no problem being rejected. And he's taking risks because he's learned to take risks when it comes to approaching women. He actually is accomplishing success based upon the attractiveness that he already has and that he's built up either from his genes, but also from him conditioning his body and understanding the business world. When guys are more attractive and they're good salespeople and they work hard and they want to learn, they are mentored by guys that are better than them. And it makes it even easier for those attractive guys to then be drawn from their mentors up to the next level to make things happen. If you're already quite high on the sexual market value scale, it's going to be way easier for you to become massively successful and rich and build your own business because you already have what other people want. And they'll buy from you and they'll do a joint venture with you and they'll invest in you because you know how to talk to people, you know how to sell, you know how to attract women into your life. You simply have high sexual market value. At the same time, I want you to understand that the guys who do have fast women and fast cars and fast everything in their lives and they have high sexual market value and they're very often overconfident, what happens is that very often they lose the money that they built up and then they have to start all over again. That's because they're overconfident and have already been at the sexual market value and they've lost everything and they can easily get it back because they now understand how to do it and then they go back and forth, back and forth. Another aspect is also you don't always know if they are really successful or not and if they really have a lot of money. It's so easy these days to get the house and to get the car and you're basically being owned by the bank. So just because someone looks successful doesn't always mean that they truly are and that they have peace inside. But that is one of the big secrets, and a lot of them have gotten it from the book Think and Grow Rich. So what do you have to do? Constantly be upgrading yourself and increasing your sexual market value. They say as a man that you reach your highest sexual market value in your late 30s and early 40s. But you know what? Really, in your 20s, in your early 20s, if you use the system that I've just revealed on this channel of setting up your financial foundation first and then procrastinating women massively until you've accomplished some strong financial foundations, you can get a very high sexual market value even in your mid-20s or late 20s. That's up to you to decide. It's a completely different world today than what it was during Napoleon Hill's time. You can become successful massively within 2 years, 5 years, or maximum 10 years of massive effort if you put women aside for a short period of time. Understand the secret of seed retention. Once you are on seed retention, you eliminate the need for sexual relations with women. You desire women, but you don't need women. Your sperm production is actually normalized and your dopamine levels are working in your benefit, so you don't need the massive spike of ejaculation. You're actually happy feeling the flow of sperm production going on in your body. It's producing millions of sperm cells every single day, and you don't need to release it because you're reabsorbing it into your body and using it for your creative purposes. It actually allows you to tap into a communication with the universe because you're vibrating at a higher level. You're vibrating at the level that the universe needs you to vibrate at in order for it to communicate directly with you and inspire you with awesome thoughts and creative ideas for your business purposes. I've gone through a lot in this video. Make sure you like it. Make sure you prioritize this channel in your daily life. My name is Joseph Darling. This is the Men of High Value channel. I'll see you in the next video.